building a culture that can respond is far more important than building a culture that can follow processes incredibly thoroughly. I mean, that to me is all about leadership. So, you need to focus on what matters. So I think we need to redefine what matters. So again, if I take the crisis example, is what matters having a very thorough BCP, business continuity plan, or is what matters making sure you've got the right culture, the right conversations, the right measures to be able to adapt and react as things change? So I think from an IOOF perspective, a lot of that comes back to the culture we're looking to create, which is very much about empowerment, understanding what matters, not relying on hierarchy, being a very collaborative culture and a very transparent culture. One of the things that we'd worked pretty heavily on prior to the crisis, but I think has come to the fore in the moment, is creating transparency amongst everyone. So my view is that if there's information in one part of the business, our job as leaders is to get that information across the whole business, because the more you share information, the more valuable it becomes. And in that context, I run weekly webinars, which is across the whole organisation. We have a conversation. A lot of that conversation is not about trying to solve problems. It's actually about just sharing context, sharing concerns, sharing opportunities, sharing shout outs, acknowledging when things are going really well and celebrating those small successes. So certainly I think, and people throw the term agile out there, and I think we've destroyed that word, but building a culture that can respond is far more important than building a culture that can follow processes incredibly thoroughly. Because as I said, no one could have predicted the source of this crisis. We could have predicted a crisis. They're called business cycles, but no one could have predicted the source of it. Therefore, it's very difficult to document the response to something you can't predict.
Mm-hmm. And so to that point, it's the readiness for, look, who knows what's coming, but it's the things that you're saying. It's about the ability to fail, and have that as part of the learning experience. It's resilience, it's attitude, it's having the right skills in place. I think, we've been in financial services a long time, and so is our amazing community. And it's very easy, I think, because financial services and banking and wealth, it is traditional, it's conservative, we're looking after people's money, it's not some, fly by night thing. And I think that's all true. But it's also always been used, I feel, as a way why we can't move faster, why we have to do things in these really hierarchical ways. And I think what you're really highlighting is that there are different ways to still have that balance. Do you think with your chats with your staff, I mean, you're now getting upwards of 1,000 of your people on your calls. Do you think, we were talking before about the potential, the silver linings, and I really like to focus on this because it is an awful situation, but I think there are silver linings. Do you think in a way you're connecting and communicating more with your staff and your clients and your community than you were before?
Oh, there's no question. And it's not only the frequency, it's also the quality of the communication. They're more human conversations. I mean, I don't think anyone will be, offended if my daughter rocks in, and actually in one of those webinars, she came in and had a chat. I mean, the reality is we're all going through this same situation at the same time. And yes, it is having a dramatic impact on parts of our society. I think in financial services, as a general comment, I think we're fortunate to be working in part of the economic system that actually is still generating revenues, and that means we can continue to look after our staff and we can continue to look after our clients, and we should never forget that. So we're fortunate, but let's do it together. And there's more human conversations. I mean, I've catch up with my executive team, which obviously is remote now, but I have people on my team I've worked with for 5, 6, 7 years. And it's only in the last 3 or 4 weeks have I realised they're a cat person, right? And because you see a cat in the background. I mean, you're learning more human elements of ourselves, our teams, and I think we can only be better for it. So one of the challenges, okay, how do you take that humanistic approach to building internal relationships back into the real world? And we have a saying within our operations team that, we're real people talking to real people. Our clients are real people, and so are we. And I think the one reflection is, I think there's probably been a tendency to park our personalities at the door when we come to work. I think we're better organisations if you bring our whole self to work, the good, the bad, the ugly. I think that may actually help us be more creative as an industry as well.